check, testing. Microphone meter, good. It's a rainy day today, little bits of thunder. Zooming in on my little plants, getting some nice fresh rainwater. I think the microphone will be necessary to pick up my voice, depending on how heavy the rain is, especially on this metal roof. Here's a very special medicinal plant called Tree of Life. Yeah, let's see if we can make a video. On today's video, we're going to do similar preparation as we've done already with the vegetables, but I'm going to add also chicken. I have here chicken breast, one side of the chicken breast, not both sides, just one side because I'm preparing only for me. If you're preparing for more people, you'll need to buy more if you've got hungry people. Or you can buy a package of drumsticks, a package of chicken thighs. The chicken breast has the most meat compared with the other parts of the chicken. It's in 4 pieces right now, and the bone is still attached. Here I have in the frying pan some water that's been heating for a few minutes. It's not full, it's only about to here, so not even halfway. You don't have to completely submerge the chicken to cook it, because the steam that's going to be created from the water evaporating will get to whatever part of the chicken is not inside the water. And I'm going to flip it occasionally, every 10 minutes. So I'm going to leave the fire at the level it's at now until it gets to a boil, until the chicken heats through. And then I want to turn the heat down as much as possible, because the higher heat you use to cook a food, the more nutrition you're going to lose. So this is going to be a slow cook. Altogether it might take an hour or less. I'm going to leave the chicken in by itself for about 25 minutes, maybe half an hour, and then I'm going to add the vegetables. For vegetables, there's a beetroot. I'm going to use half of this sweet red pepper, cauliflower, celery, and here I have yuca. Very common here. It grows. It's a plant, obviously, but this is the root of the plant, and it's a big one, so I'm only going to use a little bit of it. Now this is a carbohydrate. It's a lot of sugar, but it's very densely packed. It has a lot of fiber, so it's not quite the same as a potato, for example. It's not going to convert as quickly as a potato into sugar. And balancing with everything else, my blood sugar level will be fine. Also the vegetables, because of the level of fiber in them, the conversion to sugar, my blood sugar will be fine. And I'll have chicken, which is protein and fat. So the water's almost boiling. So here I've washed already the chicken thoroughly. I'm just going to place them in, give them enough space for each piece. If you have a bigger family, you'll probably need a bigger frying pan. Now that's it. So that's going to be by itself like that for 25 minutes. And when we come back, we'll chop up the veggies and put them together in with the chicken. Alright? Yeah, so 25 minutes later, as I said, I flipped the chicken twice in these 25 minutes, and I'll show you how I did it to protect the pan, the Teflon pan, using the spatula without letting the metal touch the coating. So you just, with the spoon, or you can use a fork, I guess, or if you have a wooden spatula, just flip the chicken without letting the metal piece touch the Teflon coating. I put it back because that's where most of the meat is. And I also turned up the heat. It's still on low, but not as low as it was for those 25 minutes. Because I want the heat to be a bit higher, because the water is going to now have to heat up the vegetables, which we're going to add. Checking the fire, yep, which we're going to add right now. The most dense are the celery, the yuca. Here's the yuca. I peeled the outer core off of it, the skin, and many times there'll be this kind of stuff, which is very similar to a branch, which my teeth can't chew. So this won't go in the frying pan. So chopping up the celery. Got 2 sticks of celery, and the leaves are still nice and healthy, so they're also going to go into the frying pan. Leafy greens are very good for the gut, the ecosystem that you have as part of your digestion. A bug. Some kind of bug. So the celery's in, and then the yuca, just basically into bite-sized pieces. Where you are, you might not be able to find yuca, especially in the fresh fruit and vegetables section, but you might be able to find it in the frozen vegetables section of the freezer. Maybe a specialty store that you know of will have it. So there's the yuca going in. Next will be the beetroot, which will give it a nice rich red color. I'm not going to make the pieces too small, because there's still about 20 minutes left of cooking. Now the chicken is actually cooked. It's safe to eat now. But if I cook it for a little bit longer, the meat will become more tender, which for me is more enjoyable. And it'll also be really easy to pull the meat off the bone with this kind of slow cook method. Sometimes when I'm cooking chicken this way, first of all, I'll just use my saucepan here. The water goes in, and then the chicken, and then many times I'll let the chicken cool down, and I'll take the chicken out, and I'll put the vegetables or something to use that chicken broth as part of a cooking process. And also I wanted to say, when I do this method, many times there's like a brown foam that shows up in the water, which I consider to be impurities that's coming out of the chicken. So I will remove that brown foam. I just splash myself. So there it is. I can't lift it for you to see it because now the water's fairly high. And that's going to be about 5 minutes. And here is the cauliflower. The stalk of the cauliflower takes longer, so I'll put that in now also. If you didn't see the episode, sorry, not episode, the video showing you how I cut broccoli and cauliflower, I'll show you right now once I get a piece. These pieces are all small enough to, I try to make bite-sized pieces. These are all good. So far I can't show you that technique. Here's one. No big deal. Watch the other video. So here it is. No. All good. Right here. So I cut about halfway in, and then I use my fingers to split it open. I don't want to go all the way through because then I'm going to have small bits of cauliflower and they're going to cook a lot quicker and become really soft. And I prefer a bit of crunch with my vegetables. Same kind of thing here. I'm going to cut about halfway through and then split it open using the knife and my fingers. So this is the stalk of the cauliflower, goes in. And now the sweet red pepper. Many times the skin will be a little bit thick on these peppers, so you sometimes have to do like a sawing motion to get the knife through that skin. So last little bit of chopping. You don't need the pieces to be super duper precise. Sometimes it's nice to have different size pieces. The beetroot is giving the yuca, which was white, it now has like a pink hue. The chicken skin, we learned years ago, might not be healthy. According to this book I've told you about a few times by Dr. Mark Harmon, called Food, What the Heck Should I Eat? He explains that the skin is okay to eat if it hasn't been cooked to a crisp, which will happen with barbecuing and frying and in the oven. When the temperature is really high, the skin will become crispy, and sometimes it even gets a bit burnt. That skin, not so healthy. But this way, it's fine. So I'm going to be eating as well the skin that's on the chicken. Now, while this is happening, I have some information that might be useful for you. The Teflon pan, very useful for many things. Omelette, French toast, egg fried bread, I think is the term in British English. Pancakes, eggs, fried eggs, because you don't need to use as much oil or butter as you would with a pan that doesn't have the Teflon coating. Important to protect the Teflon so you don't use metal, definitely. If you want to use wood or plastic, just make sure that the edge is smooth so you're not going to risk scraping the Teflon coating. But when the Teflon coating does start to flake away, it's advised to stop using that Teflon pan and invest in a new one, because as the Teflon chips away, it's going to become part of the food, which you could very easily eat. So that's the concern with the Teflon pan when it gets old enough that it starts to flake away. It could be part of the food. It could get attached to the food, and which would mean that you're eating it, which you don't want to do. So Teflon pans, if you have some in your house, my suggestion is to stop using that Teflon pan that's been flaking and invest in a new one. Yeah. Another thing I want to say is Uh, chewing your food correctly, chewing your food enough so that you help your body with the digestion process. I've read another really good book about food by a guru. His name is Sadhguru. He's a superstar present day. He's got a lot of YouTube videos. I've read a few of his books. Part of the book, plastic bottle fell. Part of the book explains that your stomach, which is right here, your stomach wants your food to be already about 50% digested. Because that way it can do its job better. Now, for the food to be 50% digested, it means there has to be adequate chewing in the mouth before the food is swallowed, going down your throat and the tubes into your stomach. I've heard many people say you need to chew your food 28 times or whatever number they say, and that's not the best way to think about it, because if you have a raw carrot or a cooked carrot, the raw carrot you have to chew a lot more. The cooked carrot, sometimes so cooked you can just squish it between your tongue and the top of your mouth and it's pulp. So don't think of how many times. Think of chewing the food until it's really small little bits. And allowing, the chewing part allows the saliva, the bacteria, other digestive juices that are in your mouth. The chewing adequately is what will make the food already half digested before it goes into your stomach. That's important. I can tell you a couple stories. I have a friend. We went through the drive-through at one of the more famous fast food restaurants. He got a double cheeseburger. Right beside the fast food restaurant was a convenience store. I got out of his car, walked straight up to the counter, and walked straight back to his car. It was a minute and a half. And he had already finished that double cheeseburger, which means he's not chewing enough, which means he's not getting the nutrition he would otherwise be able to get from that double cheeseburger. Another story, sitting at my uncle's kitchen, there was 4 of us. We were having a pizza dinner, and the pizzas in Italy are very thin crust, and they're not loaded so much with toppings as a common North American pizza. So normally each person buys their own pizza and eats it completely at that one meal. This friend of mine, he finished his entire pizza before I had finished 2 slices of the 8-slice pizza. Another example of someone chewing not enough, eating too quick. So take your time with eating, you know, maybe don't watch the TV. One thing I always recommend is when you eat your food, you take the food in your mouth, put your fork down, or your spoon, put it down, and take the time to chew your food. When your food is chewed, then pick the fork back up, put another mouthful. One recommendation. So really important, chew your food properly, because what you eat is eventually going to turn into you. Make use as best as you can of the food you're consuming. I can also say with this kind of cooking you can use other meat. You know, if you like pork, or you want pork for dinner, or I think even ground beef would be fine, or even a good cut of steak, or because we're slow cooking it, Even a not so good cut of steak would soften up with the slow cook method. Fish, you usually don't need to cook very much. So if you want to use fish, you don't need to do that preliminary part where I let the chicken cook by itself for those 25 minutes. You can put the fish in at the same time that you put the more dense vegetables. So now I'm going to add the rest of the veggies, and in a few minutes it'll be done. So that's the cauliflower and the sweet red pepper. Gonna give that a stir, get all those cold veggies into the water. It's more like a chicken broth or a chicken and a veggie broth. It's not so much water anymore. Another thing on my list is water. We need to drink enough water because the human body is made up a high percentage of water. The cells, the muscles, the bones. So we need to drink enough water. But it's important not to drink too much water. What I learned from this book by Sadhguru is we have been taught to drink too much water. He says everyone's walking around with a bottle of water, sipping the water constantly all throughout the day. And the biggest problem with that is when it's mealtime, because the stomach wants liquid or solid, not both. So if you have too much liquid and you start to eat solid food, the stomach gets a bit confused, and it also dilutes the digestive enzymes are diluted when you have liquid. I know a lot of people, they'll drink, they'll have a drink every meal. Personally, I never drink when I eat. I had water about half an hour ago, maybe an hour ago, and I won't drink again until about an hour or an hour and a half after I've eaten, so that the stomach doesn't have excess liquid, excess water, while it's trying to digest the solid food. My last meal, dinner, I'll have my dinner and I won't drink until the next morning. I might have a sip. I almost always have a sip after I finish, just to wash around, wash away, rinse my mouth, because many times there's little food bits, especially the vegetables. But from dinner time until I wake up, I don't drink. I allow the stomach to do its job as best as it can, and respect that process. A friend of mine, he had one time, probably more than one time, but one specific occasion, he tells me he had 2 beers with his dinner. I understand drinking beer. A lot of people enjoy that beverage. But if you have 2 beers, 2 bottles of liquid in your stomach while your stomach's trying to digest, you cause disharmony. It's not going to allow your stomach to do its job properly. It's also important to recognize how much liquid is in the food you're eating. in the actual food. Vegetables, for example, have a lot of water. Fruit as well. This chicken didn't have very much water at all. Most meat doesn't. So that's water. Drinking it versus not drinking it. When is the best time? When is it? After my food has digested, about an hour and a half, I will start to sip water. In that small window between two meals, that's when I'll drink a lot of water. When my food has digested and with enough time before the next meal time, that's when I'll drink 2 or 3 or 4 cups of water. Because water is necessary to allow the body to do what it has to do. So, that's enough. This is done. I'm going to turn the heat off. And I'm going to let it cool for probably 10 minutes. We're going to come back and I'll show you how I would prepare my meal. Alright, good. I have my meal ready. I put everything in a plate. Here I have leftovers. This will be my dinner, my next meal. But I'm going to say, according to Eastern tradition, what I learned from this book by Sadhguru, and I knew this beforehand as well, it's much better to have food that's freshly prepared. In his book he explains if food has been cooked and sitting there for longer than an hour and a half, if he doesn't have to, he won't eat it. But it is what it is. This will be my dinner. And here I separated the liquid. You can see it's a nice red color, a combination of chicken broth and vegetable broth. I usually use that when I cook whole grains. I have some whole grain wheat, quinoa, amaranth. If you eat white rice, if you cook that with the white rice, the rice will get a really nice red color to it. I don't eat white rice. I don't think it's healthy. It has some nutritional value, but it's mostly sugar. When it goes into your stomach, it'll very quickly turn into sugar. If you like rice, go for the brown rice or the other colored rice, wild rice. White rice, similar to pasta. I love pasta, but it's not so healthy. It'll be my junk food, I call it. When I want junk food, I'll make a plate of pasta, which will be another video because I've discovered a different way to cook pasta once or twice a month, just because I enjoy it so much. I know it's not so healthy. The pasta, like the white rice, when it gets into your stomach, it'll very quickly turn to sugar. Now, I'm going to show you close up what the meal looks like. I like to break the chicken away from the bones so it's easier when I sit to eat my meal. Here's the yuca. Instead of being white, it's got a reddish tinge from the beetroot and all the other good veggies. The chicken you saw at the beginning, I split up into 2 portions roughly. One's for lunch, one's for dinner. I checked and I found out the names of those 2 books. I said 1 book, but there's actually 2 books that I've read by Sadhguru. Some of the information is repeated in both those books, but it's a recommendation. I suggest you read them, learning about the Eastern philosophy of food intake. One book is called 3 Truths of Well-Being. The other book is called Taste of Well-Being. And the last thing, if you watched yesterday's video, we spoke about ants and building tunnels. Right here, I have about 2 meters of ant tunnel. So I checked afterwards, and the two reasons, as I said, number one, protection. If the bird or whoever eats ants can't see the ant, they don't know they're there. And the second reason why ants build tunnels is for faster transportation, faster travel. They can move a lot quicker to get their food, whatever else ants do. So that's it for today. I kind of broke my rule about being mostly vegetarian. It wasn't necessarily time, again, for chicken. I think about a week ago I had chicken. But I thought this was important enough to break my rule. It's my rule. I can break it if I want. Because I know a lot of people eat meat, chicken, fish every day. And this could be one of the healthiest ways to prepare meat compared to the usual frying or baking or barbecuing. Those taste great, but the higher the heat, the more the meat, fish, chicken is damaged, the less nutritious. And because it's slow cooked, it's going to be an easy chew. The meat has been tenderized by this kind of slow cooking process. So please try it and see what you think and see how your family enjoys it. If you like to add spices, I just added 2 pinches of salt and some olive oil, and that's it. I prefer not to have any other flavors other than the food itself. Thanks again for watching, and it's going to be a great day.